Good evening and a warm welcome to everyone here from Talking Films Online, TFO for short. TFO was founded almost on a whim by Professor Nikhila and myself in June 2020 during the lockdown. Since then, TFO has had uninterrupted discussions on films from all over the world every Saturday at 9 p.m. on Zoom. It is a group of film scholars, researchers, students, teachers, and anyone passionate about cinema. It has been our practice to invite people to select and lead the discussion of the chosen film, which we watch in our own time and place. On some occasions, filmmakers, editors, and cinematographers have also joined our sessions. Aparna Sen, Amol Palekar, Girish Kasarvalli, and Adur Gopalakrishnan, to name a few. We have held film festivals such as East European, Iranian, Women's Cinema, and others. In the month of June each year, to celebrate our anniversary, we hold a smartphone short film making contest for students and a lecture series in various university departments. This evening, to open the discussion of the film American Fiction, we have with us Abhijeet Ranadive. He really does not need an introduction in this forum because I think this is the third time he is coming on the forum to open the discussion. Nevertheless, it is my privilege to introduce him. Abhijeet teaches and writes about cinema, visual arts, media, and technology. His writings are published in mainstream Marathi newspapers and periodicals. He also works as creative head and member of the selection committee. Oof, gosh. He also works as creative head and member of the selection committee at the Pune International Film Festival. He has edited an art historical biography of the painter V.S. Gaitonde called V.S. Gaitonde Sonata of Solitude 2016 and selected writings of the painter Prabhakar Barve, Chitra Vastu Vichar 2019. He has translated Camus' L'étranger from French to Marathi and in the year 2023, and The Creative Circuit, a collection of essays on the visual arts by the noted painter and theoretician K.G. Subramaniam from English to Marathi. Some of his writings are available on his blog and the academia page. Welcome, Abhijeet, and over to you.
Thank you, and I'm always happy to be here talking about films. I love talking about films, and I think the audience here is quite fascinating and also very well informed and very intelligent bunch of people. So it's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Talking about American fiction, I think it might be worthwhile to start contextualizing the whole thing a little bit because you see, a few years ago, something happened in the academia or in the cultural sphere, especially in the US, but it had repercussions elsewhere as well. Um, so, on the whole, if we look at academia, especially American academia, and the cultural sphere, such as the literary world or the world of cinema, etc., um, it's always been considered as liberal. So the cinema people for the rest of the US very often they tend to look at them as people who are kind of too liberal for the average Americans and things like that. And so you get to hear a lot of interesting things about that. However, what has happened is the definition of what it takes to be a liberal or what it takes to be somebody who is um, how do you call it, progressive even. So the definition has, of course, changed over time, and it is expected because as the society evolves, cultural norms evolve, and what may have been politically correct 50 years ago is no longer the case, or it may even be frowned upon. And this takes various uh, how do you call it? It's converted into different kinds of cultural behavior or cultural norms that keep evolving. And so something similar happened to the film industry in the US in about 2015, I think. So that was a year when the Oscar nominations were announced. People found that it was all white people and mostly males at that. And so somebody started this hashtag called Oscars So White, and it became viral. And this was almost a sign of the times, you can say, because it became viral because there were a lot of people who agreed with what these people had to say, and they had objected to the Academy, which gives the Oscars, and its members who vote for the Oscars. So they were saying that this is just a bunch of white males and privileged males at that too. And so where are the other voices? And those because they're not there, the Oscars have become outdated. And so the Academy took notice of that, and it tried to change a lot of things. So one of the changes, for example, was that the constitution of the Academy, the people who are the members who get to vote, they opened that up, and that was with an effort to make it more inclusive, or more reflective of what the American people are today, or in the 21st century, you can say. And so, as a result of that, for example, many people from diverse backgrounds came in. So I think even people from India were invited. So right now, I think there are people like Ram Charan and Junior NTR who are members of the Academy, of course, because of the success of RRR and the success of the RRR. A film like RRR getting an Oscar last year itself was a reflection of the desire for inclusivity. Um, and there are people like Karan Johar, Mani Ratnam, Chaitanya Tamhane, and Shaunak Sen, who's the director of a documentary that was nominated, I think, last year. Um, so you can see that, in a similar manner, the academy has become, or they have tried to make it more inclusive. And this, in a way, it um, resulted in certain changes at the Oscars or at the awards also. So I think the biggest change, for example, was when in 2016 the film Moonlight got the Best Film Oscar, and it was it was a black story with not just a black protagonist, but uh, most of the actors in the film, or most of the characters in the film, were black, and so people welcomed that. But then, of course, as you know, that it is the Oscars, or the Academy itself operates in a sort of a marketplace, and which means that people take this to mean many things. So, as a result, for example, even from the comics universe, a film like Black Panther was created, which was so in a way the commercial or the mainstream films answer to the Oscars so white, because it is, of course, the protagonist is black, and again, most of the characters are black, and so on. And this is, I mean, I gave that, and of course, there are films like Get Out, and which are similarly not, what would be called as mainstream films maybe 10 years ago or maybe 15 years ago. But they are being considered as very much a mainstream film. And if you haven't seen Get Out, then please do so. I would urge you to do that, because it's a horror film, and it's a horror film with a black character and with racism as something that is uh, very much at the forefront of the film. So these things started happening, and they started happening also in the academia and also in the literary world. And so everywhere, there was this need, and which coming to American fiction, which is expressed by this character Sintara when she says in the book reading as part of the book festival scene, where she says, "Where are our voices, or where are our stories?" And so that was, the in a way the trigger that changed things in the US. At the same time, um, because it is a marketplace and because everything is measured in terms of who gets the awards, who gets the money, and an achievement of some sorts. As a result of that, it became almost like a calculated affair. So how do you write a black novel, or how do you create a black film, and that satisfies all these urges that the white people and their guilt, they need these kinds of films, or they need these kinds of stories. And so how do you do that so that the Oscars people are happy, and then we can hope for an award. And so this is what is known as, in the Oscars world, this is known as an Oscar bait. And so which is something that we see even in American fiction, that eventually the film rights the gets sold for the novel, and we see the person who's making the film, and we see the kind of calculations that he's making. So how are you going to tell this story? How is the screenplay going to be? And is that worthwhile? Can I consider that? Will that so I think he has a dialogue that we'll be there. So using this scenario, at the end, he says that we'll be there at the big night, which means that, yeah. So now I think you've given me a story with which we can hope to be nominated for the Oscars. That is where it goes eventually. And of course, this whole story about the book award and the juries, uh, and the need for the people who are giving the book award to be inclusive, and as a result, they invite these two black authors to be a part of the jury. And of course, so one of the most interesting or fascinating scenes in the film is when they are discussing that novel, and it is the white people who have liked that novel, and the two black juries are saying that it is pandering to the tastes, or it is pandering to the white guilt, and therefore we don't think we should give the award to this novel. And but eventually, the 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 guy who seems to be, almost a kind of a racist, and this big burly American who doesn't like to even hear other people's voices. So he ends up saying that, it's a 3-2 majority, so we will have to give the award to this novel. And the irony, of course, is that the supposedly the liberal and the progressive woman jury ends up saying that I think it's essential to hear black voices. And when they have actually done the opposite of that, because the two black voices on the jury have opposed the decision of the white juries. And of course, the irony is very obvious. And this brings us to another aspect of the film, which is that, so because it is a comedy, and of the kind that, so they also, you have to, so there is a meta narrative here, in the sense that the film American Fiction itself is very much an Oscars bait film. And so therefore, they also have to pander to the tastes of the Academy members. And so it is possible, and I think even some reviews have mentioned that the film is, the many of the characters are more like caricatures, and not with a lot of depth and so on. Um, and I think which is uh, it's not out of place to say that, yeah, of course, for the sake of comedy, they have created this jury as, as a sort of a caricature of what goes on. Or even in the beginning, when we see that scene, when a student is she's uncomfortable that the N word is written on the board, and She says, I don't want to have to stare at that word, and she gets offended. She gets out of the class. When they are actually talking about black narratives. And so therefore, so he says that if you are looking at narratives from the South, there are bound to be words which we consider offensive, but they're going to be a part of that literature, and we have to deal with that as students of literature and so on. So these scenes, of course, they elicit laughter, but people can object to them, saying that so you're doing exactly the same thing that the author monk in the film is angry about. And so that is, in a way, it's a sort of a joke that is played throughout the film. And some people may not like it, and some people may enjoy it. And that I hope that in the discussion that follows, people will have different views on that, and I would be very curious to hear about that. What is also interesting, however, is that you see a film like this or a story like this that criticizes this whole need for inclusiveness or need for diverse stories in a diverse society. Uh, uh, is that it is very easy, given the kind of polarization that is present in American society, with all the right-wing people calling it the wokeism or the cancel culture and so on. It is very easy to by making a comedy or a satire on these themes, it's very easy to seem to be catering to or to pander to the right wing. And so I was, when I heard the premise of the film, I was very curious to see how they avoid that. And I think they have done it very deftly. And the way they have done it is quite interesting, I think, in the sense that we have to understand that, after all, the protagonist and his family are people who are, although they are black, they are very privileged people. So Monk's father is a doctor, his sister is a doctor, his brother is a doctor, he himself is an academician, and we see the kind of lifestyle he leads, the kind of restaurants he goes to, and there is that funny scene when I think, when he meets the film's director, and he orders white wine, and the director's flummoxed, and so you see, but it kind of gives us an idea of the kind of privileged background. And of course, they have a house in Boston, they have a beach house, and so on. Um, so we get this idea of this privileged background, and not just that, there is this very interesting thread of what Monk's father would have been like, and what Monk is like. In a way, there is a parallel between him and his father in many ways, and that happens to have some very interesting, how do you call it, nuances to the story. So, for example, I think Monk's sister, as well as his brother, as well as his mother, say that at some point Monk's father had an affair with a white woman. Similarly, when Monk comes home with his girlfriend, uh, there is this sense, people say, "Oh, thank God she's not white," or something like that. So, which means that there is this history that because of perhaps his privileged background or because of some other reasons, there is a certain delusional quality to Monk, and it is implied that it was there in his father's mind also, that with that privilege, he is not really thinking of himself as black, or perhaps by having a white girlfriend or by having an affair with a white woman, there are they, that is the sense that one gets, are they trying to prove to the world that they're not really black? So whether it's the drinking of the white wine, or it is the having a white woman in your life, so there is that a slightly troubling aspect to Monk's behavior, and to Monk's even his interactions with his siblings. So there is this sense that he has been away, or not in touch, or he hasn't really tried to, how do you call it? be really like family to them, and he has been distant and so on. So we get a sense that, in a way, is that his way of appearing white, or is that his? I'm sorry, am I not audible? I just saw this message from Nandini.
No, no, you are. Please go
Okay,
on.
okay. Because I just saw in the chat there was this
Yeah,
message.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, fine, thanks.
yeah.
Uh, so there is this sense that he is trying to deny his blackness, and which is also reflected in his refusal to be classified as an African American author. Also, his refusal to be uh, to tell the kind of black stories. And of course, we are so when he's outraged at his publishers, or when he's outraged as the people who reject his manuscripts because it is not black enough, we are kind of empathetic to him at the beginning of the film. But slowly, as we come to know these nuances to his character, I think we also start understanding the problems that he has faced in his life as part of this sort of delusion that he is living under. And so, which I think works well on the background of these caricatures or stereotypes which the film has created to make this funny film, or to make the funny scenes happen. Um, and so I think because of this parallel story, or this parallel thread of what is this person, Monk? So he is fairly intelligent, but at the same time, is he too smart to realize how he's screwing up his own life? And is this an incident which, I mean, apart from the obvious symbolism of the fact that he's denying his own blackness, he ends up writing a black novel as his publishers want, and which ends up becoming a critical as well as a commercial success. Um, and of course, he cannot say no to it because he needs the money to take care of his mother. So this whole uh, business of I think I'm privileged, but I'm not privileged enough, so I need the money to sustain myself and to sustain my family and so on. So he does need the money, and he ends up doing everything that he hates. Uh, so that aspect, I think, brings the film to a higher level than just a caricature, or just a film that is peopled with stereotypes. So ultimately, in a way, what that whole thing makes us ask is, who's the joke on? Is the joke on the publishers? Is the joke on the readers, by the fact that, here is a novel that is cliche ridden, and which everybody's lapping up, and it's getting the award and so on? Or is the joke on Monk himself? Because in a way, it is uh, the point, or what happens to this novel and to his life as part of that. Because if you realize this nice relationship that he seems to be building with this black woman, who's also very intelligent, and who also happens to be privileged because she's a lawyer after all. So that relationship breaks because of this complex that he has about this book that he's writing, but he does not want to come clean with his girlfriend about it. I mean, the obvious thing would have been, and we keep hoping all the time, at least I did when I was watching the film, that uh, you know, if you are in your senses, there is this woman whom you can't afford to lose. She's this great woman, and funny and all that. So you have to come clean to her, instead of kind of venting your anger, or all this that is frothing inside him about the guilt that he's written this novel, and that novel is out for judgment with the juries. And so he's seething with anger inside, and so he takes it all out on his girlfriend. And then, if you remember that scene with his brother at, I think, the wedding party, where the brother asks him, so basically you've screwed up this relationship as well. So the brother knows him so well that he knows that this was bound to happen. And so in some sense, this whole nuanced relationship of his coming to terms with what he's doing, his coming to terms with his identity, and his coming to terms with this dichotomy or dialectic of, or whatever you may want to call it, about, or the inner contradiction of what he's doing and what he believes in. And so until he comes to terms with that, until he is really honest about it with himself, he's not going to come out of this situation, and which I think makes the film go a notch above. Um, At the same time, there is this also interesting aspect of the brother being gay. And I think during the same scene at the marriage party, the brother also brings out his own feelings, saying that he feels sad that his father died without really knowing that his son was gay. And Monk at that point, I think, says something like, "But what if you had told him, and what if he had rejected you?" And so the brother says that still he would have known the real me. And in a way, it is very nuanced, or it is very telling, because it is also a comment on Monk himself. Because what is the real Monk, and is he has he come to terms with himself about it enough so that he can tell his family or his girlfriend very frankly about what he has done, and then see how they deal with him, because that is when they would have seen the real him. And he has to keep the real him closeted or hidden, which is causing all the problems in his relationships with his girlfriend or even with his family. So I think the screenplay is very well written in this sense, and the film brings out all these intricacies or complexities of your identity as a black person, but privileged, but intelligent, but talented, and how all this gets together, and how do you deal with all that? So I think that's all that I wanted to say. I don't think I should be saying more. But I would really be curious to hear what other people have to say, because I know that people here are from English literature background and film studies backgrounds. Um, and the film does have a lot of these themes. So I'm very curious to hear what people have to say.
Thank you very much, Abhijeet, for that excellent introduction to the film and the way you began by contextualizing this particular narrative. It is now open for discussion. I was actually curious about the choice of the name. Now, Thelonious Monk is a very well-known American jazz musician, and his music is not used anywhere in the film. You, of course, have some really beautiful blues numbers, but Monk's music is not used. At the same time, I mean, his name is used. I was just trying to see what possibly could be the reason for it. And I thought the only thing was the jazz musician was known for his very unorthodox, playing of the piano, and probably the right, I mean, the character in this film
Yeah,
also has an unorthodox approach to the writing of a black novel.
right.
So apart from this, I could not find any.
I think so. Yeah, it's interesting that you brought this up. I mean, of course, it's open to interpretation, but I think so. One thing is that for a black father to want to know his son, to name his son Thelonious, itself, I think it is a reference to the kind of privilege that this family enjoys. It's it's very interesting, and maybe other people's experiences differ, but um, this whole in the US, I met many white people who were very excited about jazz, and
Mm.
even the New Orleans is very much a touristy place that people go to listen to jazz, or Chicago for that matter, and so on. Um, it is almost like the kind of irony that the film is trying to portray, in the sense that Thelonious Monk's music, although he was black and uh, he became very famous, um, perhaps it is, and I may be wrong, of course. This is my interpretation, but perhaps it is the white people who are listeners of his music, and that may also reflect on the kind of commodity that black jazz
Mm.
has become in the US, and the fact that this black person tries to name his son Thelonious, and so the son, of course, gets the allusion, and so he's known by Monk in his family and people who know him well. So that may be one reason for doing that.
Probably, yeah, probably, yes. Like all aspects of the film, I thought this was also complex.
Right, right.
Yeah. Anyone else would like to come in? Yes, yes, Nikhila.
Yeah, so thanks very much for suggesting the film Abhijeet. It was a wonderful watch. And I watched it over 2 nights, and it was so unpredictable. There was really very little that you could kind of predict in terms of where this film is going. So in that sense, it was very curious and very enjoyable. Also very thought provoking. Um, and I was thinking of, I haven't read the novel, but I was looking at the title of the novel by Everett, and I think it's called Erasure. So I was I was thinking of the title, as Geeta was saying. I was also thinking of the title, not of the character, but of the book, and why they did not want to name this. I mean, American fiction kind of encompasses so many levels of complexity. The fiction that the society believes in. I mean, at so many levels one can understand it. But at another dimension, I thought that is evocative in the title. I may be wrong since I haven't read the novel. But it's also about erasure. So while constituting or reconstituting blackness, there is also an erasure that is happening. So I mean, it's such a tricky game that he has to play. That if he has to remain a writer whose books get sold or read or whatever, visible on the bookshelves, then he has to write what the market wants. But that also means erasure. That also means complete. He says towards the end, in his, I think it's an imaginary conversation. He doesn't know who he is. When he has to relate to his black girlfriend. So I thought that was also very evocative, the title of Erasure, and what it means to be a writer, and the preconceptions that are kind of foisted on a black writer, and so on. I was also like many years ago, when we used to read Shashi Deshpande and her interviews, she would keep saying, I want to be known as a writer. I don't want to be known as a woman writer. But her novels were so much about the world of women. So I used to wonder, so what is she really fussing about? But here, what is different is that his novels are not. I mean, they may be about a black a life, but I mean, it's not meant to be the kind of black life that people want to read about. So I was thinking, like you were saying, so is it about embracing his blackness? Is it about disavowing that to get the freedom to write and to be the kind of person he envisages, for himself? So is blackness a kind of prison, a trap? And so at so many levels, I thought the film sends us thinking, sets us thinking. So thank you very much for this film. I thought it will also be a wonderful film to discuss and introduce in class.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
So about what you were saying about erasure, I think, I mean, I haven't read the book, so I don't really know if what I'm saying is really reflected in the theme of the book, but I see it reflected in the film at least, which is that so Monk and possibly his father, they have been thinking that uh, with the help or because of their privilege, they can erase their identity. But there's a very interesting scene. There are two scenes that come to my mind. One is towards the beginning of the film when he tries to hail a taxi. And while he's saying that, I don't want people to, I think something like, I don't exactly remember, but he's saying something to his publisher, something like, I don't want people to think of me as a black person all the time, or as a black writer or something. And he hails the taxi doesn't stop for him, and a white person has stopped it, and the taxi stopped for the white person. So no matter, it's almost as if the film is saying that even if he thinks or even if he wants to erase that blackness from his identity, uh, it is not going to, just because he wants it, it's not going to happen. It's as simple as that in today's America, at least. The second scene that I was referring to was the scene between Monk and Sintara when they are, discussing the book awards. So everybody else has taken a lunch break, and everybody has taken a lunch break, and these two are in that room. And so he starts. So they both, first of all, he's happy that she thinks she has the right opinion about his book, so he's happy about that. But then he starts asking her about, without having read her book, he starts saying that, but I think your book is the same. And I think there she has some very interesting things to say. So one of the things that she says is that uh, I don't have to keep writing about me all the time. So, it doesn't, so by doing that, she is in a way saying that it doesn't, I mean, everything doesn't have to be about me, which is a kind of a repartee without knowing Monk. So for us, we feel the irony behind that because we have seen Monk and how self-centered he is, or how full of himself he is in a way. The second thing she says is that I think my book is different because it is based on authentic interviews. I have talked to a lot of people. I have done a lot of research to write what I have written, and which I think again is a very valid point, that I may not have the kind of background that is uh, the background of the people I'm writing about, but that should that prevent me from writing about them, or is it just can I try to bridge the gap if I feel like writing about these people, which because she also is, in the first scene at the book festival, she talks about who she is and her background, and we understand that she's also a very privileged person, just like Monk. Uh, so, in a way, just because we are privileged, do we have to stop writing about uh, our people, so to say? If and which is something that she has said in the book festival press, that where are our stories when she asks them. Of course, she means the stories of Black people. So if she thinks that there are not enough black stories out there, and so it is her duty. So she has to try and come out of her privilege and go out of her way to give voices to these people who would not have voices otherwise, and which is what she has done. And so I think that is a very good answer to Monk's problems with these kinds of black stories or black novels. And so in that sense, I think it is a critique of him and what he is like, and which is also saying that just because somebody has written a black novel, uh, you don't have to look at it so condescendingly. And
I
so
agree with,
that's a part of
yes.
that erasure. So she's not erasing her identity, and in fact, she's trying to go out of her way not to erase it, despite her privilege. And he is trying to erase it with no success, really.
Geeta, if I can just make one more quick point.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I agree with you that it is, in some sense, a kind of bad faith that he cannot embrace his blackness in a society that is so color conscious. But I was also thinking, like you were saying, on whom is the joke? At some level, the joke is also on American society that allows for blacks and blackness to be defined in a certain kind of way, which makes this fear of interaction, also what one can be, that also gets very circumscribed. So you can only be black in a certain kind of way. So I was also thinking about that aspect. Yeah.
Right,
So,
and which is very true, because that is precisely what he is angry about in the beginning of the film. That when that student of his, she objects to the N word, he says, I mean, he as good as says that, "Well, I'm the black guy here, not you. So who are you to get offended by it?" So we see his frustration, and of course we can understand that it is very much valid.
May I say something, Geeta?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Abhijeet. For, if you hadn't recommended the film, I think I might have missed it. And it was really brilliant. So thank you very much, and introducing it as well. I found the film works at various levels, na? And one of them, of course, is the ways in which white America looks at the narrative, stories of Black America, and I think that is something that's there. But I think the film is also a very critical look at inward at Black elites, and I felt that came to me, at least that came through very strongly, because Monk doesn't even the way he the way the director actually elicits the performance, it's a very deadpan, it's not getting terribly he's not getting terribly angry. He's got the emotion is actually the most when it comes to people and people around him, but his mother and so on and so forth. But otherwise, on the question of the novel or there doesn't seem to be much emotion. So I found it rather a kind of a sort of critique, an inward critique, and particularly a critique of Black elites, which of course the film is full of. And very unlike what one sees in American films. So while it's a reality, it's also very problematic, and the way in which they are responding to stories that are not of their own because of the color of their skin. They're not their stories because they're not from that class. So it's also that. But in that context, I found the ending like really, really interesting. And actually, the ending actually really stayed with me because it's at that point that it is turned back on white America. This is how I looked at it. The way in which the state security agencies don't care if you're elite or if you've just made this whole thing up and you're coming clean, and the way in which there's a resurrection and kind of and the interesting thing is also what the novel's called. I mean, that's also kind of working at that level. So I found the ending like really, really bizarre, and it really stayed with me. So it's certainly a political satire, but it's also a satire that's kind of directed towards the African American community itself. That's what I felt, and I don't know if you could say something about the ending, because I just found that so cool in a way. In the ending was just really cool, and left one with all kinds of
Yeah, so I tend to see the ending as a comment on Hollywood because you see, so the way it works is that he's narrating his scenario for the film adaptation of the book to the prospective director. And so he creates, so the first ending that he creates, it is very open-ended. So in which we see Monk going up to the dais and saying, I have a confession to make, I think. But what happens after that, it does not show, and the film ends there, and which the director doesn't like. He says that that is too nuanced. I mean, it is basically it is not. I think I have written the dialogue. Um, Let me see if I can find it somewhere. Yeah. So the director says, nuance doesn't put asses in the theater seats.
Hmm.
And so he says, can you change the ending? Then the second ending that he provides is one where nothing happens at the awards ceremony. And at the end, he goes back to his girlfriend. He rings the doorbell, she opens. But then again, he keeps it open in the sense what happens to their story afterwards. He does not say that. And then the director objects to that, saying that, oh, that is like a romantic comedy. We don't want that. We don't want that. We want a essentially what he's saying is we want a black film, we want a black film. And so the third ending, and which is what the director eventually approves, is what Monk gives him, in which the author comes out on the dais and start accepts the prize without and he's about to tell people that I'm the guy and I had written this under a pseudonym and all that. When the I think the FBI people come and there's a shootout and he dies. So finally, the American director, the white American director who wants an Oscar bait of a film, he accepts that ending because that is what is going to work with the Oscars. That is what is going to work with the audiences. So the black guy has to die at the end. And if there's a shootout, then all the better, because then, so basically you have a Hollywood ending to the film.
Yeah, it's a completely Hollywood ending, and also in the other sense, when he gets into his brother's car and drives off,
Right.
and into the Beverly Hills. So it's like a kind of, it's quite a amusing kind of take on
Yeah, but
Hollywood. It's,
I
I mean,
like
not
the end
Hollywood.
with the brother because in a way it is trying to say that the faults that or the mistakes that he has made all his life and which I talked about while
Yeah.
introducing the film. So I think he has come to terms with that. He has understood what he has done wrong, and now he's trying to make amends. So we presume that it is an open-ended ending, just the way he liked it, in the sense that he is trying to make amends with his brother.
Yeah.
He will try to go back to his girlfriend. Whether she accepts him or not is a different matter. But I think what is obvious is that the monk at the end of the film is a changed man, and the change is for the better.
And there's a closure that he establishes for himself.
Right, right.
I felt at that point. So it's, yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Yes, Madhurima, please
Yeah.
go ahead.
So just to continue the discussion that Nikhila ma'am was actually initiating. So you were talking about the limits of you were talking about the desire for inclusivity. And I think to some extent this film talks about the limits of this desire. Because this very desire for inclusivity, it is actually confining the marginal narratives only to the spaces of suffering and trauma. And I feel that there exists a politics in deciding which narratives they can represent. And the agency, it is ironically lying with the whites, and they are the ones who are dominating as well as regulating the market. And this becomes a sort of economic, a socio-economic institution through which they can decide the ways through which they can constitute the blackness. And the film actually tries to kind of uh, talk about something of a balance. Like it talks about how, while there can be narratives regarding the memories of sufferings through the other Black woman author, there should also be a space which would enable the socio historically marginal positions, the agency to represent themselves in their totality. So it should be their narratives, the ways in which they want to represent it. So I was actually thinking when you were talking about the ways Monk is denying his blackness, and that is true on to some extents. So I was actually thinking, is he actually denying his blackness, or is he resisting the aspects of blackness that are actually constructed by the dominant social discourses and expectations? And the film, I feel it to some extent subverts the popular expectations of the audience in terms of its portrayal of the theme. Like the Black characters it represents and their life narratives, they don't really match with our ideas or the popular notions about blackness. So on many levels, this is a really interesting film. And thank you, sir, for the recommendation and for the interesting arguments and points that you have made so far. Thank you.
Thanks. So yeah, I think you've made a very interesting point in the sense that um, so in the beginning, the monk that we see in the beginning is very much outraged by exactly what you were saying, and of course, in a capitalist society, it is the market that determines what is successful and what is not. So if you look at the average um, cinema put out by Hollywood, it caters to the predominantly white audience, and there is no denying that. And which is precisely why I contextualized this whole thing by talking about the Oscars so white hashtag, because people, when the hashtag became viral, and when Moonlight, the next year Moonlight became the best picture uh, winner, people thought that yes, things are changing, but are they really changing? And is this, so the marketplace is so smart that it adapts to every change that it encounters, and eventually what you get are mostly vapid narratives that are looking at how to fill seats in the theater. And so whatever fills the seats is whatever is going to win. So in that sense, even if you look at this year's Oscars, this isn't the forum perhaps to discuss Oppenheimer, which is the film that won Best Film. Uh, but what does the film talk about really? It talks about the person who was the sort of the author of the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb was the very way in which the US won the Second World War. So it's a very patriotic narrative, and of course, it shows the tragedy of that individual who was a genius. And so, in a way, the whole how do you call it? The American dream is kind of based on the fact that almost like everybody can be a genius, and but the geniuses are always tortured, or they suffer in some ways, and so that's a very cliched narrative, but that is precisely what won the audiences also in the post pandemic empty theaters. So this is what filled the theaters, and Barbie, of course, and this is also what triumphed at the Oscars, and not a film which is like American Fiction, which is very, very different from something like Oppenheimer, say.
Anyone else would like to come in now? Tarkeshwar, would you like to say something?
I
Yeah.
think I enjoyed the film because it's something that I was thinking about from the last maybe 25 years. How literary taste is shaped by the certain kind of critics and the industry, and how it can also nullify the political issues raised by certain kind of literature. It's more like a kind of voyeuristic pleasure that we derive in reading certain kind of literature. So Black literature seems to be fulfilling that kind of voyeuristic pleasure, and that is when this protagonist monk is trying to air his views and then intervene in that entire process. And then this question of literature and the author, the relationship between the two, is also quite interesting. While we look at the writer's autobiographies, while reading the literature or analyzing the literature, it is more to see what kind of influences that they had. Where did they study? Whom they read? Did they read Tolstoy? Or did they read romantic literature before writing in Indian languages, let's say? These were the things. But when quote unquote Dalit literature came up, they started looking at their life. So there was so much interest in their life. So autobiography became the genre, even in Dalit writing in India. So much so that in Kannada, though the Dalit literature began in 70s, until 90s, we did not have autobiography. It was mainly poetry which was associated with the movement, Dalit Sangharsh Samiti's movement. But once in Marathi, it was established that Dalit literature means autobiography. It spilled over to Kannada, and everybody started writing an autobiography in Kannada. So how this market and the taste of the critics and the majority of the readers, and of course the majority of the readers are non-Dalit and then the uh, non-black in the Europe, the American context. And similarly, when women writing came, there is also so much interest in seeing them as victims and their sufferings and try to establish the link between their life and the stories that they have written. So this, it was obsessed to know their life. As if without knowing their life, we can't understand their literature. That kind of obsess that I could see in 90s, so much so that the Karnataka Lekakira Sangha, the Women Writers Association of Karnataka, they came with a project of bringing the women's writers together and asking them to narrate about their life and documenting it. I think more than 5 volumes have come out in Kannada on that. I think the first one or the second one I reviewed in 1997, and I was very critical of it because the way the literary critics were trying to approach these writings, not as literature, but as expanding the horizon of Kannada literature by bringing in experiences which were hitherto were not part of it. So new experiences are coming in. So you are valuing it because it is new. For whom it is new? For women, is it new? For Dalit, is it new? For Black, is it new? It is their life. It is not something new to them. But when you say that it is enriching the Kannada literature by bringing in new experiences, it is new for you, who is neither a woman nor a Black nor a Dalit. So in that sense, the Lekakira Sangha, the women's body itself feeding into this and providing their autobiographies was, I thought, something weird. When I wrote about it, there was a silence, though it was discussed among themselves, the women writers, but no one stopped that activity because they went on publishing several volumes because it was so popular. And this assuming that my word is a general word and somebody else's word is a particular word, which is not known to me, and I would like to know about that particular word. So, this I thought mm, characterizing certain experiences as general experiences and certain experiences as particular to a particular gender, caste, or a race is something weird. And interestingly, as Nikhil also pointed out about uh, Shashi Deshpande, even in Dalit writers have raised it time and again. Why do you want to call me as a Dalit writer? Why don't you simply call me as a writer? I think it is a kind of, there's no answer to it. In fact, Siddlingaya used to assert that he should be called as a Dalit writer in the beginning. But once he became a professor in a university and then even went on to become a MLA, MLC in the Legislative Assembly, he thought now you call me as a writer, not as a Dalit writer. So this dilemma to be known by your experience and also to be identified with others without bearing the burden of identity that is thrust on you is something that is interesting. So what is thrust on you, you use it to develop a kind of polemic, but after some time you get uh, tired of that identity. You want to get rid of that identity. So this dynamics is something that I could also see in this uh, film. And then this lampooning of the taste of the American audience and uh, the publishing industry and the critic that happens is also quite interesting in the film. Thank you for suggesting the film and also for the discussion and introducing it.
Thanks.
Would you like to respond, Abhijeet?
No, I think his points are quite. I mean, they have been, so from the Marathi literature side, they have been discussed to no end in a way that and interestingly, it is as newer and newer generations of writers, whether it is Marathi or um, I think perhaps elsewhere as well, keep coming. That dilemma is always there in the sense that can you really escape your identity? Is it worth escaping? And especially in a situation where people do want to hear your stories, which are linked to your identity or which are essentially narratives of your identity. So is it even worth doing that? And which is in a way reflective of the frustration of Monk, that he has written a few books but nobody reads them. So is he just writing in a void? And which is kind of, I think, telling about us as readers or us as viewers, that perhaps if somebody is trying to say something different from what is expected of him or her, based on his or her identity, do we really are we really giving justice to it so that people would uh, come up, or the a plethora of narratives would emerge instead of this is the mainstream, or this is the award-winning stream, or this is the parallel stream, or whatever. So that and with postmodernism and all that, I had thought that okay, now perhaps something different will happen in the 21st century, that we have been through all that, we've been through the post-colonial discourse and the identities and all the debates that came with it. But at least so far, it doesn't seem to be happening. in Marathi at least. I don't know about Kannada literature, especially the contemporary literature, or even in other regional languages. But so I think yes, it is something that we do need to ponder about. So in a way, it is not just Monk's problem that his books are not selling. I think it's our problem as well.
Fabian, you you have unmuted. Please go ahead.
You hear me?
Yeah,
And
yeah. We can hear you.
Thank you for showing us the film. I would have never noticed this film on video, on Amazon Video, if it was not mentioned. And I think the key approach and key success of the film, it's humor and self-depreciation. He's ridiculing himself, but also gay people like his brother, you know, secondary characters are also very important in the film. And he's ridiculing white people, white women, and they are stupid and hypocrites. He's ridiculing capitalism, who push people to be stupid and hypocrites. And it's I mean, it's interesting because critical, it's critics in every sense, and that makes a kind of authenticity. Everyone is criticize his own self. The black elite, like it was mentioned previously by Madame Nandini, right? The black elite is really criticized, and in a funny way, because they have the same kind of snobbish things, you know, especially in Boston. And all the academics in Harvard. I was invited in Harvard, and there is this, people are very snobbish when they have a house by the beach, you know, having a beach house is something really nice, you know. It puts you like you are different if you have a beach house and you belong to the high society and you are upper class. So they have this kind of like the whites, upper class signs, which are a little bit ridiculous. And I think this is very interesting because the critics is in all direction. But I was thinking if you would define this film as a woke film, you know, belonging to the woke movement. And this is my questions.
So I think he's the filmmaker is walking a very thin line because you see the very word woke, it is used a lot by the right-wing people to say that you woke people, there is something wrong with you, and because of you, there is something wrong with America, and so on. And so, criticizing this desire for inclusive narratives and so on. So it runs the risk of how do you call it, seeming sympathetic to the right wing, and which I think the film has very astutely avoided by the very self-deprecation that you were talking about. That because Monk, or despite being the protagonist, we are able to, or the film is laughing at Monk himself, and all the establishment. So it is, it does not leave anybody sacred. So it is like saying we are all hypocrites.
Yeah.
And by
Okay.
doing that, it avoids becoming a right-wing narrative.
Yeah.
And so therefore, the wokeism, how do you call it? aspect, or it avoids being woke in the way the right wing would like it to be.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question?
It's yeah, it's intelligent. It avoids all kind of category because there is self-depreciation and humor in all directions. So it avoids the kind of narrowing the film cannot be narrowed to a dimension because of this horizontal criticism. And also capitalism, it's also a critique of capitalism
Of course.
and very pertinent criticism on capitalism.
Very much so.
Also, I thought from a film studies point of view, it's a very interesting film because it is so much about the whole process of adaptation. And adaptation is such a central part of film studies. In this film, we actually see the process of a written text being processed into visual text. And in the process, I thought it also brings up this question of authenticity because it is a white filmmaker who is adapting a black novelist's a text into a film. So if the black novelist's text is, an authentic text, then does it become an inauthentic text in the process of being made into a film by a white filmmaker? So I thought that's also a question the film raises.
Right. And of course, there is the second layer, which is that in the first place, the narrative is not authentic.
Is not authentic,
So,
yes.
so by subverting, so in a way, the narrative is not authentic, and then the filmmaker is obviously subverting the original narrative because he wants to sell tickets and because he wants to create a film that appeals to the Oscars, to the Academy. Uh, and he's very upfront about it. So he's very honest about it, and
Honest.
which is precisely what capitalism does. That by saying that you're not ashamed to say that I want to make money, you end up saying, in a way, the truth, which is brutal, and which is uh, it kind of peels away the layers of hypocrisy. So he's, at least we have to say that the filmmaker is not a hypocrite because he openly tells the author that this is not going to sell tickets and I need something more. And I don't
Yes.
care. At that point, I don't care if it is any more the authentic story or not.
Right. Any other questions, comments? Okay, if there are no more questions, we will bring this session to a close. Thank you very much, Abhijeet, for recommending this really wonderful film and for the extremely wonderful discussion that we had on it. Thank you. Thank you all
Like
very
I said,
much.
like I
Thank you,
said earlier,
Thank you. Good night.
it's a
Thank
pleasure
you. Thank
talking to
you.
you.
Have a nice
Thank you.
weekend,
Good night.
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Yeah, you were saying something, Abhijeet?
No, I was just saying that, like I said in the beginning, it's always a pleasure to talk to this group, and
Thank
today
you.
is no exception. So I really enjoyed it. The other thing that I'm glad about is that, you see, I just wasn't sure how well known this film is because, after all, it had a few Oscar nominations, and it even won the Best Adapted Screenplay Oscar, I think. Uh, and so based on the reactions of these people here, it seems that not enough people have heard about it. So I would really like to urge you that if you have liked the film, do tell people about it. Uh,
Sure.
and after all, it is a funny film. So it's a serious film, but it's also a funny film. So people
Yes.
can like it.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
thank you very much, and
Thank
bye-bye.
you. Thank you all very much. Good night and have a nice Sunday. And happy Holi too.
Happy
Ah,
Holi.
Yes.
lucky.
Yeah. Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.